All right, so yes, joining me, I've got Geegaz here, the creator of A Key's Path, and we are going to be trying out the version 0.7 of the game, which released just about 2 weeks ago. So, welcome back to the stream. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thing. It's been a while.
Yeah, it certainly has. All the way back in 2020 was when I tried out the original Jam version of the game, and that was yeah, like I guess the first question I have to ask is what prompted the update to the new version of the game?
Um, since the jam, so 2 years ago, I've been working on the game on my free time because I still have I still have a job and studies on the side. So 2 weeks ago, I was invited to a game show, I think, where I could present a keys path. So this update is actually the version I presented at this game show.
Nice.
So after working on it like a bit here and there after 2 years, it's got a bit of an upgrade, like visually with the SFX and everything. But it's not very long. Like it's still quite short with well 3 levels now,
Mhm.
and yeah, I hope you you'll see an upgrade.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it makes sense that the game doesn't have to be crazy long. Like from what I remember of the original game, it was a really great exploration of the mechanics. It felt like you got a good amount of mileage out of the mechanics that were there. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it would be tough to say for sure if I could really imagine a version of this game that was too much longer. I think it just
Yeah, I don't think so because this version still uses the same mechanics, which means they have been improvements on the
Mhm.
mechanics, like how it feels, general user experience. But it's basically the same thing. The level design was changed a bit, like there are new puzzles, slightly longer, but there are no new mechanics.
Nice. And so these the parallax backgrounds, I assume, and the little squirrel are these new additions?
Um, these they are actually quite old. I think they were added 1 year ago, which is still a bit longer. But it was just a bit after the jam. Uh, I took a few weeks to work on it to fix some issues, some feedback I received after the jam. It took me a few months, and so 1 year ago, I published the version 0.6. So you can see like 0.7 is 1 year after 0.6, and where I added the squiggle, the parallax background, the grid, which was not in the jam version. Some of
Yeah, I remember the original Jam version. You had a lot of flexibility in where you could place the buttons. So maybe that's why some of this looks new to me, is because I didn't see the version that came out last year, but I did just see. I guess I'm still remembering the original Jam version.
yeah, it was terrible, honestly. Like not having a grid. I think it was Mark Brown's first issue with the game. I remember seeing the review when he was struggling to place the control right, and so that was like the first thing I changed when I got my hands back on the game after the jam. It was add just add this grid. Why did I do? Why did I not do it for the jam?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I can imagine like the basic version of the game. If I can say so, it worked just fine for me, and I didn't have an issue controlling the character. Um, or placing the items. Like sometimes I almost remember solving the puzzles in a kind of clever way that sort of abused the lack of the grid. Like sometimes like placing something partway between two things.
Ah, yeah, yeah, I can see that. Also, during the jam, the collision shape of the player character was a capsule,
Mhm.
which was really not great. You could slip off platforms, and there were a ton of people complaining about it. So now it's a rectangle, and
Okay.
you might not be able to go up half block like before. But since everything is snapped to the grid now, shouldn't be an issue either.
Mhm. Yep. Okay. I don't know why I keep dying at that same point in the game, but I'll figure this out. Don't you worry. Um. So, can you talk a little bit more about like what was the game show that you were going on to show the game off?
It's a small, it's a local game show,
Hmm.
which is where I come from. It's a city in France called Lyon, and so it was the indie game Lyon. It's a game show for indie games made from the city or around the area of Lyon. Uh, yeah, it was one day. It was Saturday, the, I think the 19th of February, and it was actually supposed to happen at the beginning of 2021, but
Hmm.
since well, pandemic and
Yeah.
everything got pushed back to 2022. Yeah,
All right.
so I could see a lot of interesting game. There are like a lot of great games you might see in 2023. I think most of
Hmm.
them are getting out next year. I don't have all the links and names under here, but it might be worth it to check it out.
Yeah, of course. So this is still a version 0.7. What do you have in mind for I guess I should be asking what is missing from the game that is making it not a version 0 a version 1.0 just yet?
I think at least twice the current length, or maybe 3 times the current length, and that's a huge thing because it took me 2 years to make this version,
Hmm.
which doesn't mean that it would take me 2 years if I was like full time or if I had direct funding for it.
Right.
But the the plan is that I still have a few additional mechanics I want to add, which are not in the game. Like they are back in the ID drawer with a few sketches and everything.
Hmm.
And so version 1.0 would be adding these mechanics, having 3 times the length, and yeah, refine the control, add more options, make a Steam page.
Yeah,
But yeah,
all
it's
sounds
still
good
a lot of work.
for sure. Okay, I'm almost certain that was not the intended solution for that puzzle, but I feel like I got past it eventually.
Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem with the current version, by the way. Which is, I don't know if you watched Mark Brown's latest video about developing his game. I assume because like you participated in GMTK, so I don't know. He talks about how his game was stuck between puzzle and platformer.
Yeah.
Like yeah, and that's a problem I've been feeling with this game too. because sometimes people approach it like a puzzle game, and the rest of the time people just approach it like a, well, a platformer.
Hmm.
And the problem is it's neither really really exactly one of those.
Hmm.
Some puzzles really require you to think about how you will place your blocks, like in order, and sometimes there are multiple solutions, like you did for the previous one. And sometimes it just requires you to run really fast and jump at the right
Hmm.
time. But since some people are more used to puzzle mechanics, they will try to use their controls and their blocks to pass the thing. Oh well, you did it. You managed to clear that jump. And for example, this jump, some people get stuck for 10 minutes, 20 minutes because they try to place the blocks and they don't know what to do because they approach it like a puzzle when
Hmm.
it's actually a platform challenge. And some other times they will approach the puzzles like a platform challenge and try just to brute force through it, which works sometimes, but it's not the intended solution. And that's something I also want to work on in the future,
Hmm.
which is really setting a clear boundary between platform and puzzle.
Right. I do know exactly what you mean. Like that I think at some point everyone realizes that every platforming game has some element of puzzle to it. Like even if it's really heavy on the execution side of things, of figuring out what you need to do and then executing on it, when you're given a level with various hazards and elements in it, you end up having to, as the player, like maybe sometimes it's more obvious than others, but I think some of the most interesting puzzle, or sorry, interesting platform levels that I've encountered are the ones where you have to take a second and kind of think like, okay, so I've got to jump here, but then I've got to move out of the way really quickly because I'm going to get shot from above. And then I can't land over there because then that platform is timed such that there's going to be a fire that appears over there. And then maybe I need to wall jump off of that. And then, yeah. And then you sort of start to like treat platforming game as a puzzle game, and it only becomes more difficult when the game is expressly a bit more leaning towards being a puzzle. And I really want to believe that games can exist as a hybrid, that it is possible to communicate the idea that the game that you are making is both a puzzle and a platformer. But a lot of the time, I see it as people saying like, "Oh, you should really just make it all about the precision platforming. I don't want to think when I play your game. I just want it to challenge me with hard jumps." Or or the opposite, right? They say like, "Oh, if it's a puzzle game, then it shouldn't be about making hard jumps ever." And I don't know, it's kind of sad to me that people think there isn't room for both, because I think you can get some really interesting experiences out of the two sort of systems working together.
Yeah, I see what you mean. The problem here is that the mechanic is not really suited to hard platforming challenges.
Hmm.
I mean, you have to carefully place your keys on the screen, sometimes while moving.
Yeah.
Well, not in this particular case, but sometimes it requires you to place your keys when you're running or when you're moving, and
Hmm.
it can be really difficult. So either it becomes a hard precision platformer where you
Hmm.
have to place your keys and switch back and get them back. It was a feedback I had that it was really annoying to drag your keys, um, and place them and drag them back, or So I added the shift key to get all your controls back, because that
Right.
was something people were really complaining a lot about.
Hmm.
And but still, it felt like the game wasn't suited for fast action.
Yeah, I guess it's like there's so many conveniences, like the way that you can click on a spot in the bottom to recall the key. You can click on the key just in the environment, and it'll recall it. Um, I guess I can think of one situation where it's important to just recall all of your keys, like sort of that jump that I just did before. But I guess I guess one other thing that could make it a little more extreme is the idea that you are like moving in the game and then you hold down a button and then like time freezes and you have the opportunity to like place place your keys, place your controls in the game wherever you want, and then you let go of the button and time unfreezes and you go back to moving around.
Yeah,
Not as
that
the
was one of
only
the
way.
additions.
Oh, sorry?
No, no, that's an idea that I also had in mind, but didn't
Mhm.
have enough time to implement. Um,
Right.
I saw it as an accessibility option for people that didn't want to to place the keys really fast.
Hmm.
So by default, it would be time goes slower by 50%,
Hmm.
and you could raise up to 100 if you wanted to really have a time freeze when you're holding the key,
Yeah.
or just lower it to 0 if you want to go fast as possible. But that's something I didn't have time to implement, sadly.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's a very tricky solution, but it is just I guess it's sort of the first thing that I thought of in terms of not something that the game has to be played that way, but that you'd have the option to freeze time if you wanted to, if it felt like that was necessary,
Yeah, yeah, I see.
so that you could still allow people to play the game without time freezing. And maybe the design is still built around the idea that it is possible to complete in real time, but that you would be um, you could slow it down if you wanted to treat it more as a puzzle and less as a execution based platformer. And that slowdown could apply to freezing all the objects when you're placing keys, or it could apply to slowing down the player character and all projectiles in the environment, um, so that you feel like you don't have to think about it and act quite as quickly. Anyway, I'm doing a very bad job on this particular puzzle here. Um,
Yeah,
I
I think you
guess
got stuck somewhere.
uh, I think that from here I might. Okay, good, good, good. So that's definitely one of those situations where, and this is something I've encountered in my own game as well. Um, I think it's really important to establish. So it looks like the character can jump exactly 2 units high, or maybe like just slightly more than 2 units.
Uh, Approximately 2 units and a half.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's good. That's it. It should be 2.5, so that you don't have the issue of making it too difficult to get over a certain jump. Uh, I know that my platforming game, the character can jump like 3.2 units, and I had at least one person complaining that the point 0.2 was not enough, that it should be like 3.5. And at this point, there's a lot of game built, and it would be hard to change something like that. So I guess the one thing that's a little less obvious is just how far the player can move horizontally. Because I don't think there have been a lot of things that have challenged me to make horizontal jumps. Like, if you're talking about making the game longer, one thing I can imagine is not getting all three of the keys along the bottom of the screen first. Like maybe at first you only get the ability to add in the left block, and you have a mostly traditional platforming level where the only thing you ever need to add is the left block. And like 3/4 of the way through that level, then you also get the right block. And one of the like final challenges of that level is to do something you've been doing all the way up to that point with the left block, but now you have to do it with the right block. And you already do that in the game. Like you already have that sort of pattern. The only thing I'm suggesting is like go ahead and make that an entire level just to get players a little more familiar with the platforming controls in the level in the game, rather.
Yeah, that in this version, comparing to the one I had 1 year ago,
Mm-hmm.
the the first section, which is basically the first level, it's a platforming tutorial.
Mm-hmm.
When you learn, press this key to go right and this key to go left, and
Yeah.
press space to jump. And comparing to the last version, and yeah, this is the end.
Okay.
Compared to the last version, it's slightly longer
Mm-hmm.
because at the end, if I'm right, you still get. Let me see. So now, okay, so this jump
Mm-hmm.
was supposed to teach you how high you could jump, because in the previous tutorial, in the previous version, you learned how far you could jump, but not how high. And I think here
Mm-hmm.
I could make like a second jump, a second hard jump, which would be about teaching you your maximum length, and that's something I forgot to do or didn't do. I preferred to teach people about jumping high and not jumping far, and then I shoot myself in the foot in the next level because I wanted people to jump far um, and not high.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I think it's like the length of this opening segment here is great before you're introduced to the mechanic of the game. But I think that you could go even further with this. I think you could um, have this introductory segment where you're learning the basic platforming controls of the game. You reasonably could make this longer. Like you don't. It's very efficient right now, but just having a simple little platformer, you could even introduce the cannons and have me do some tricky jumping around um, a cannon or two before you introduce the like special mechanic of the game. So yeah, don't feel bad about having like one jump that teaches you about height and another couple jumps that teach you about um, the length, like the width that the character can jump. Just a few jumps to get me used to the basic platform controls of the game, get me thinking about like, oh, okay, I can jump from here to there. That makes sense. And then you can almost make an entire other level just about uh, yeah, so like the beginning of this level, right? Like we immediately have the idea of like using um, the left movement button to get up there, and then you have us do it again, and then immediately you have us switch around to using the right button, and then realizing that
Yeah,
you go
yeah,
back, which is beautifully efficient. But if you're looking for an opportunity to stretch this out, I think you're totally fine to make more of a game based on just using one block, and then you pick up the other block, and now there are like, okay, here's a fun thing. I just had this idea. You get to this exact position here, and you make your way up to this platform. Oops, don't know how I managed to kill myself there.
Yeah,
Um,
for example, the jump just before, you can just jump on the platform. Like you don't
okay,
have
right.
to use a key, and it's funny because you're not the only one to make well, to place a block to get there, and that's exactly what you were saying before, like with
How did I
teaching,
spawn?
because you activated the checkpoint. So when you go back, it takes you to the last checkpoint.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
Yeah,
Also, I think I just triggered something weird there. Like the character.
yeah,
Hold on.
it's a bug I know when
Okay. Okay.
when you trigger a jump
Hmm.
just before activating this tutorial,
Okay.
you get your jump back just after the tutorial.
Okay. So if it's as long as it's a known thing, I don't have to spend. But yeah. So if the only thing you have is the left key, you make it here, you make the jump, and then you're trying to go over this way and you can't. But you've got a branching path and you can continue to move more over to the right here. And then you get the right key, and that lets you come back here and complete this jump. And now you've got both of them, and you can continue on a bit further. So you could inject a little bit more level into this space here where you sort of reach this branching point and the player doesn't realize, well, if you had the like, you actually don't need. I realize that it's possible to sort of. I didn't do it. I didn't do it right, but it is possible to complete this without using the left key, but not if you don't have the jump key as well. Like if you have to collect the jump key separately. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's what do you think about putting a branching point roughly here in the level?
Well, I've actually had a suggestion before to make kind of a roguelike
Uh-huh.
out of it when you collect keys along the way. I think it was one of the ideas of the jam at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one game when you collect keys and that you had to use to advance. It was pretty fun, by the way. But it's an interesting idea. I don't think I saw it exactly this way, but it's still interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what direction you want to take the game. I just saw it as an opportunity, and I'm sure like you already have ideas for how you can extend the length of the game. It's
Oh yeah,
just
tons, but not in the game.
and I don't know. Have you got I guess one other thing that again you've probably already thought of this, but just the idea of actively removing certain keys that the player can make use of. Like in one level, you like you lose the use of the spacebar. So specifically, I'm thinking of this challenge back here with the three things shooting. It's easiest to solve this by using the spacebar because it perfectly blocks it. But I just sort of experimented and I realized, yeah, it's still possible to block just one of these. Or, maybe if you're just really careful with your timing, you can just make it through without using anything. I don't know.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
okay.
it's a good idea.
So it looks like you've definitely blocked it off so that it's not, or at least it would be very difficult to do this. I don't know. Do you know if this is completely impossible to do if you unless you have
With this specific timing, I think someone did it in the speed run because there was speed run of the previous version of the game.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think someone managed to do well to pass this with the same exact timing. I have no idea how they did
Mhm.
it. Complete mystery, but I think it's possible.
Wow. I think that I was pretty close to going as late as I could have gone there, and I still got hit by the last projectile. So I don't know. Um, it is, but yeah, it is definitely possible to clear this challenge with using just one of your left or right blocks. You don't have to use the space block to clear that. So yeah, I'm sure that you can get some challenge or puzzle mileage out of trying to clear hazards the player has encountered before, but just with different keys available for them to use. Like some are locked, some are not.
One among the ideas that I have, I think to add this, it's a good idea, and I have to keep in mind to keep it in mind for the rest of the game. But the thing is, with what I have right now, I
Mhm.
don't think it's enough. And when I mean enough, what I mean is just removing the key would cause a lot of problems because it would
Mhm.
just be things you've already seen before, like nothing new, just difficulty and timing, and that's not interesting. And I'd want to add a few more features that use the keys. So when you um, when I remove that's it. When I remove some of the keys that you have right now, you'd
Mhm.
have other mechanics to make up for the lack of this key or the space bar or the right key. And so let's say you just have your left key and you have to go left, you'd have to sacrifice it. But then how do you move? Well,
Mhm.
there would be other mechanics that allow you to move even though you've sacrificed your only way to move forward.
Right.
And so that's why I say I want to add other mechanics before I do this. It's just because I don't want to run out of ideas on how to sacrifice these keys.
Yeah, of course. And I think that in general, like you're right. It is only a way of modifying difficulty. It's not actually creating something unique or different. So I think it's absolutely okay, hang on. I just realized something I can do here. This is funny. And I'm sure this is also totally intentional that you can do just go up this way.
Oh, it's well, let's say it's half intentional.
No, but I think it's really cool because you mentioned that somebody did a speedrun of the game before. Did that involve going up this direction?
Well, if you're really skilled, you can just take your left key
Hmm.
and jump in the air. Like you just by letting go
Oh,
of
I
the
see.
key. Yeah, by just doing that, you can not only jump vertically, but also do long jumps horizontally and
Oh my
just clear
goodness.
the whole level by floating in the air on this key.
Oh my
And I saw
goodness.
someone doing a tool assisted speedrun, like a task of the game,
Yeah,
and it's incredible. Like they just zoom through the thing.
that's amazing. And obviously, like, that gets to a certain level of complexity that I don't think you necessarily want to enforce on any player. I think it's really neat that that's possible, but I don't think you want to construct anything based off of that.
Well, you've perfectly summarized what I think about it. I love it. Like I love this mechanic. I call it the elevator, and I've
Hmm.
seen everyone that played the game for more than half an hour just stumble on it randomly or actively try to do it.
Hmm.
And I think it's amazing because for moderately skilled players, it's not very hard to do with two controls. but then you reach a certain level of skill when you can just use one key and jump through the entire level. And some people have been complaining about it, like saying, "Well, it breaks the game. What do you want to do to fix it?" And I say, "I like it. Why do you want me to fix it? It's great."
Yeah, I completely agree. Like I say these things, as I said, because I'm working on a platforming game as well, and a lot of the time I will encounter quirks of the like hazards or the obstacles or like the wall jump where I find like, oh, this is technically possible. That's cool. Oh, this like technically breaks the game or something, but I don't ever want to remove it because yeah, if it's an interesting like different way of playing the game, then I don't think it like as long as it's not too easy to do where it would be like harming the play experience. Yeah, I'm fine with leaving that sort of stuff in.
Because I had a friend that played the game and who told me, "Yeah, I found this thing when you can just jump on a key and place another one below," and said, "Yeah, I know it. It's the elevator."
Mm-hmm.
And we had a bit of the discussion about it, like with what you said, and and I told him I know why it exists. I know how it's done. I could patch it really easily. Like I could
Mm-hmm.
make it like 2 times more difficult, or 3 times, 10 times more difficult because I know how it's done.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to because it's too much fun for people. Well, for everyone that knows a bit about the game.
Yeah.
But it's true that when you know about it, everything you've done before can seem a bit worthless. Like people said, "Well, why do you make this level if I can just go up?" Um, but the thing is, generally they realize that after they've cleared the game a first time or cleared the
Yeah.
level, and so it's, it's not really a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's a technique that's so advanced that like maybe some people will figure it out before the end of the game. But I don't think anyone is going to approach the game and figure that out immediately. No, I shouldn't say that. I bet
Mm.
other game developers would think of that because I know that as a game developer, I will approach things and I'll say like, "Oh, I wonder how they implemented this. I wonder if there's a time constraint on this as to when I can place it, when I can pick it back up." And oh, look at that! I was able to like just yesterday on the stream, I noticed that when I got hit by a dying enemy, they like pushed me a bit, and I was able to use that to get a dying enemy to flip me into a wall and then go around a door I wasn't supposed to have the key to just yet. So
Oh wow!
sometimes when you're a game developer, you look for these things. So, like I said, I don't, or rather, I should say, I don't think um, most people will notice it. But I bet if anyone notices it early in the game, it's probably because either they're really into game development or they're really into watching speedruns and trying to like break games and find the limits of these kind of things. But in either case, I don't think it's something you have to worry about. Like, I don't think it diminishes the casual experience of the game to discover that there is an alternate way of playing.
Well, yeah. Either way, I've put a little surprise in the game for people that know how to do this. Like in the level you're
Right.
currently in,
Mhm.
there's a little secret. It's not really hard to find. It just requires like a little bit of elevator.
Right.
Uh,
Oh. Yeah, I'm just thinking now, like where are the different places that I can use this sort of thing? It's tricky to pull off. Okay,
yeah.
maybe I'll
To
keep
be
an eye
fair,
out
you
for
can
that.
use two keys. Like you can use the two left and right keys to make it easier.
Right. Yeah, I know what you mean, and I'll keep an eye out for it as I keep whoops as I keep playing here. But Do you want to talk a bit about what your eventual objective is for the game? Like, I know you mentioned a Steam page, but making it longer, like, is the game still going to be free, or are you actually thinking about making a paid version of it at some point?
Um, so how I see it is that right now it's not um, it's not a commercial game. It's a personal
Hmm.
project, and I just want people to enjoy it how they can while I enjoy making it. Um, but eventually, I think when it reaches a state when I'm happy about it, which is well the length I talked about, the things I talked about,
Hmm.
I think I will well put a price on it. Not really high, but something that I think people are ready to pay for, well, free time this length with
Yeah,
additional mechanics and better level design. So that's my objective. Means a personal project that I will make, well, paid once I think I have enough mechanics and length.
yeah, that sounds good. I think that I would certainly say don't uh, don't sell it for any less than like somewhere between, for a game of this length. I have seen like some general advice when I participated in the 10-minute game collection, to not sell a game for less than $3, like $3 US. So by the time you're putting all the effort into releasing the version on Steam and all the polish you put into it, even if it's a short game, the most important thing is that you just let people know about that ahead of time. You sort of get their expectations. I did find it. I found the secret.
Yeah, good job. So it's just the unused tiles to show I actually have things ready under the hood, but
Hmm.
not in the game yet. These are actually tiles that I would use for another area uh, with another mechanic that add with the fireballs and the anti-control areas.
Hmm.
But yeah, that was the secret.
Nice.
And there's nothing up here. It just you don't see it, but there's actually a wall on there's a ceiling that prevents you from going outside the map.
Yeah, I figured there was just a limitation to the viewport, that like you don't let the camera travel any further, but there is still an actual wall there. Yeah. So yeah, I guess I wanted to make sure that I don't know what you had in mind to sell the game for, but I just wanted to say like no less than $3. Make sure that you are valuing your work, even if, as you say, this is a game that you are working on in your spare time and is more of a passion project. Like it's still valuable, it's still fun, it still represents a high degree of polish. So yeah, I really look forward to seeing where this ends up going, and I think that's about everything I had in mind to ask about. So, was there anything final that you wanted to mention about the game before we wrap things up today?
Well, just to wrapping up, I'd say that I've talked with people at the game show, and
Hmm.
one of the first thing I've asked someone that was really happy about the game and really excited and liked it a lot, I asked him, well, if this game was 3 times longer,
Hmm.
how much would you be willing to pay for? And it was really interesting because he said, well, around the same things,
Hmm.
and also added that for someone like him who liked this kind of games, who really liked Celeste, for example,
Hmm.
um, the pixel art games and everything, he told me he'd be ready to pay around $5, and I think that's really a fair price because that's what I had in mind.
Good.
Um, So yeah, that's around everything. From the start, I said, okay, this game won't be long. It will be a
Hmm.
short game because I was really influenced by the 10-minute games actually, and I said right off the bat, okay, $5. $5 is good. $5 is well, and I think that's what I'm gonna do once I'm happy with it. So yeah.
All right. Yeah, I would honestly say like, especially if you do end up making it longer, then I think $5 is about um would seem like an absolutely fair price. And then again, it really comes down to clarifying, like telling people upfront, like expect the game to last you about this long. And you can give a range. You can say like this game will take you between like 25 to 35 minutes. And then you're always going to get like some comment of like dislike. I beat the game in 5 minutes. Give me my money back.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, there's never anything you can do to please people like that. But I think most people will be happy. I can at least say that for the 10-minute game stuff, like we had people dislike individual games and sometimes requesting refunds based on that. But no one complained about the length of the games because we were very, like, it's in the name, 10-minute game. So people were very understanding of the fact it's like, okay, well, if this is what you paid for, this is what you made it very clear that that's the intended length of the experience, and they didn't. Again, they didn't ask for a refund based on that. They only ever asked for refunds because they didn't enjoy a particular game. So yeah, I guess if you do have any future versions of the game that you'd like to share, even if they're versions that are just sort of like internal or prototype based, I'd be always happy to talk more about the game. So thanks again for coming on and having a chat.
Well, yeah. Thank you for for asking me to present it and to come. It was my pleasure.
All right. Well, I won't keep you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully we get to talk again soon.
Right. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Oh,
All
and
right.
good luck to every to every people that are gonna present um, their games. It's the Brackies Jam, right?
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully we'll get some more people coming in from that.
Yeah, I hope. It's not like Doom there where you can just have channels that are on the main page.
Hmm.
Here you have to actually advertise.
Yeah,
I guess it's
exactly.
not easy.
Yeah. But yeah, so hopefully I can give some of those people a bit of a spotlight, even if I can't rate them myself. So, but yeah, thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye for now.
Bye bye.